our next speaker is our very own wonderful campaign manager, Alex Vince, and he's going to share with us an exciting update to his 1080 Poison campaign. Over to you, Alex.
Okay, can we see that? Excellent. Okay, so hi everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to be involved in these webinars, and it's always exciting to know that we're able to welcome many more people here over Zoom than we would be if we were to hold them in person. But before I go any further, I'd just like to echo Linda and Tara by acknowledging the Darug people of the Eora Nation as the traditional owners, inhabitants, and caretakers of the land I stand on tonight. To traditional owners and elders, those past and present, I pay my most heartfelt respect, acknowledging that sovereignty of this land was stolen and never ceded. This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So on behalf of the team and as an individual, I would like to express my own animal liberations and the coalition's deepest respect for the Darug people. So as some of you may already know, I co-run the Coalition Against 1080 Poison. A key part of this work is advocating on behalf of families who have lost loved ones to 1080. More and more of this work is based on lobbying governments to catch up with the rest of the world by issuing an immediate and a nationwide ban on its use. And part of that work is increasing awareness, because we've found that most Australians are either unaware of what 1080 is, or they believe that it must have been banned many years ago simply because it just is so bad. So recently I was invited to take part in a documentary about the plight of dingoes across the country. And a short clip of that interview was recently released. So I'd like to share that with you now. Afterwards, I'll say a few words about the current state of baiting here in New South Wales.
TENA is a chemical. Its proper scientific name is sodium monofluoroacetate. It's more commonly known simply as 1080. So the name is numerical as well. It refers to the fact that it was the 1080th or 1080th chemical that was being trialled by scientists during World War II. They had run out of all the other chemicals that they'd been using to kill rats and other rodents. So they needed something else to kind of come up with that they could use to kill those animals. And they came up with 1080 poison. We know today, as they did very quickly back then as well, that it is one of the most toxic and dangerous substances anywhere in the world. The fact that it's odorless, tasteless, it's terrifying. To think that something that is just so indiscriminate and deadly, it can be ingested without you ever knowing it. Back in the 40s, there were governments that considered using it as a wartime chemical for that reason. Yes, 1080 is banned in almost every country in the world. Australia and New Zealand are responsible for around about 100% of its worldwide use. Every other country will not permit it past its borders. We are the only two countries that use it on the scale and at the rate and in the ways that we do.
So the first time that Australia imported 1080 poison, we only received 15 pounds. So that's roughly 7 kilograms. Today, we use at the very least 440 pounds. So that's about 200 kilograms every single year. So that's about, there's a good reason that so much more is used. Back in the 1950s, it cost over $350 to import a single pound of 1080 to Australia. Today, it costs less than a cup of coffee. Oh, I'm just going to stay there for a second. Between 40 cents and $1 to bait an entire hectare of 1080 land with 1080 poison. To give you an insight or a perspective of what that actually means, That's enough to kill more than 114 million dogs every single year. And it's important to emphasize that that's a very, very conservative estimate. First of all, it only accounts for the initial victims, not those who die after eating the toxic corpses of the earlier victims. And that's because 1080 is a food chain killer. That means that it continues to kill long after the first victim has died. In fact, a single bait can kill a total of 3 times. Second, it doesn't account for the different sensitivities of species and individuals within those species to 1080 poison. The true number, 114 million, is a big number, but the true number will be far, far higher than that. So it'll likely come as no surprise that we do use a lot more. And as I said, between 40 cents and $1 to bait an entire hectare of land today. So here's how much was used just in New South Wales by one agency, one department of one agency in 2019. So over 57,000 baits were dropped over nearly 5,000 kilometers. And that is a lot. But the next year, nearly 9,000 kilometers were baited with nearly 200,000 baits. So that's an increase of over 200% from one year to the next. And of all species, dogs and other canines, so that includes dingoes and also foxes, they're the most susceptible to 1080 poison. So this photo here, I haven't got the photo actually, less than 2 milligrams is enough to kill a 30-kilogram dog. More than 3 times that amount is used in baits to kill dingoes. Now, to put that into perspective, 2 milligrams is the equivalent of 0.004 teaspoons, and it's the weight of a mosquito. So if you can imagine, waking up and you've already got a mosquito bite, you were unaware that there was one on you. That's how much of this stuff will kill a 30-kilogram dog. And to make matters much worse, there's very, very strong evidence that the target species do not actually take the baits. And that goes against a key myth that state governments, federal governments, they rely on this when they tell us that 1080 is safe. So one study found that of all baits that were dropped during a program, only 1% were taken by dingoes. The rest were taken by ants, birds, cats, lizards, and even kangaroos. So when we extrapolate that, it means that for every single bait that was taken by a dingo, 84 were taken by other species, like kangaroos. And when we remember that 1080 is lethal to all life forms, from earthworms up to wedge-tailed eagles, those statistics are really, really terrifying. And as we can see here, there were almost 60 aerial baiting programs undertaken by National Parks and Wildlife in New South Wales in June this year. Now, the reason that these months are heavily baited is because they coincide with the breeding cycles of particularly dingoes and foxes. And most of those programs, around about 50%, were in national parks, although other areas like conservation areas, nature reserves, even flora reserves, they are aerial baited as well. Now, 60 programs seems like a lot, but when we combine it with ground-based baiting programs as well, the true and the sheer scale of what's going on in this state is really quite easy to see. So in total, there were 319 baiting programs underway in June this year. And it's really important to note that this map only shows programs that were run by National Parks and Wildlife. It doesn't include any that were run by other organizations like Local Land Services, the Department of Primary Industries, or private landholders. That's only National Parks and Wildlife. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, really. So 1080 poison, it really truly does represent an animal welfare crisis here in this country. It can take anywhere from 2 to 22 days for an animal to die after they ingest 1080 poison. And during that time, they endure prolonged suffering that vets have compared to being endlessly electrocuted. The dog on the screen right now, her name is Chrissy. She recently passed away from 1080 poisoning. So if you have any questions that we don't get to tonight, please always feel free to email me at that address, and we have a whole lot of information. Everything that you will need is on that website there, but please never hesitate to reach out. We're always here to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex. There's probably nobody in this country who knows more about 1080 than you do, and it's just madness that it's not banned. Just it's unbelievable. Thank you for everything that you do to bring awareness and ultimately one day a ban on this shocking poison.
Absolutely. We'll get there together.
Yeah.